Welcome to the STAM podcast. I'm Adar Sandhu, a deputy editor of the journal Science and Technology of Advanced Materials, STAM. This series of episodes focuses on the effects of the covid-19 pandemic on the research activities of materials scientists all over the world. In the first episode, Professor Hatsufumi Hirohata of the University of York in the UK described his experiences. In this episode, we are joined by Dr Roland Hany, a research scientist at Empa in Switzerland. So Roland, welcome to the STAM podcast. Can we start by asking for a short summary about your research activities?
Yes, our research is focused on the development of new and improved organic optoelectronic devices, solar cells, light-emitting devices, or memristas, and we specifically synthesize organic molecules that absorb in the near infrared region, but not in the visible, and then we integrate these molecules into these devices, and so we are interested in devices that have a response in the near infrared, but not in the visible. The lab or the whole Empa company is a material science. We are integrated into the so-called ETH domain of Switzerland, which is ETH Zurich, and then there's a big school in Lausanne, and we are a small sister, so to say, and we are doing material research in many different directions. We are about 1,000 people and 30 labs, so it's a broad spectrum, so to say.
So let's go back to January, or before March anyway, of 2020, and ask you, what were your thoughts about the initial reports of the outbreak in China? What was the reaction of the people around you, your institute, your colleagues?
Very little. I mean, we had the information, obviously, but we have the newspapers, but we didn't really think that this will be of any effect. And even when then the first cases were reported from Italy, I remember back, I was not really worried. And exactly when the lockdown started here, we actually wanted to go on holidays, I remember. And until to the last minute, we were quite sure that and convinced that we can go, because we wanted to go to Austria skiing. And then there was these cases in Ischgl, and then I think it was on Friday, there was a lockdown in Austria, and that we were still, and then on Saturday morning it was lockdown in Switzerland. So I personally was really not prepared, and I'm not sure if my institution was actually prepared. I think it was the 15th of March or something like that, if that is correct. Yes, something around then. And at the beginning, I remember, when the lockdown at our institute started, not everybody had a laptop, for example, for starting at home, from home, and then masks were missing or not available, and disinfectants. And at the beginning, the access to the Empa computer servers was overloaded. So I was not really sure if the Empa was prepared for the lockdown.
What did you do about equipment and the running of the lab? Did you have access to the institute?
Yes, we had access in special cases for maintenance. We have some sort of a attendance list, we had and still have, and then you sign in, and your boss said it's okay, and then you could come and I don't know, refill nitrogen in magnets and do stuff like that. So that was always possible. But for the rest, we stayed at home. I think it was 5 weeks that we had a lockdown. But we had, I think, the crisis management when it started was really good and effective. We have a medical, an emergency medical service at Empa always, and this was kind of information. You can a contact point for information if you feel sick or some of your family. They could also, in special cases, find you a doctor that you could make a test, because was very or almost impossible at the beginning. So that was really, really okay. We always had informations from the line managers, so no problem there. And after 5 weeks, we went back to something like 50% of which we still have, which means the idea is one person per lab, one person per office. But if you do writing and reading, you can stay at home. So that's this is okay, and we are still on that 50% level, more or less. And if we cannot keep the distance, we social distance or 2 meters or something, we should wear a mask. Not really an issue here. But in Switzerland, not many people are wearing a mask, I have to say, because it's not mandatory. So almost nobody does it.
How did you maintain contact with your colleagues?
Yeah, we stay in touch. We stayed in touch via video conference platforms. We have Skype, Zoom, and things like that. I think my students, I would say, stayed motivated. I have to say, I never felt that that they're just getting lazy, and it surprised me. They also told me, because they have now at the moment less time in the lab, they have to think more carefully how they design their experiments. So, and I said, well, I thought you do this all the time already, but that's a sort of a positive side effect, that you have to think more carefully what you do with your limited time. So that was a surprise.
How will this pandemic affect international conferences, do you think? Will everything go virtual? Or is there still hope for conventional types of gatherings?
Yeah, I'm still hoping for a conference in the UK, actually, in September. they still have it. They hope that this conference can take place. But otherwise, I wanted to go to Brazil. I have a project with Brazilian partners that has been cancelled.
Do you have teaching duties? If so, how are you finding online teaching?
No, I do not teach, but I talked about it with my boss. He's teaching, and he said, yeah, it's going well. It's not really an issue, but I also have 3 sons that study at university, and they have a little bit a different opinion. It's not that easy for them. For example, if you have online courses on lab courses, you know what I mean? If it takes hours, and it's basically impossible, they say. And also you have these, I don't know how to say, these exercise courses where you can sit together with an assistant and discuss the topic of the real lecture. And they also think this is not possible, or is not possible online, so to say. So, I mean, yeah, for my boss, it's no problem. It just turns on the Zoom. But from the other side, it's maybe, or it's not that easy, obviously.
Has the pandemic caused any damage to your research activities? Wasting chemicals, perishables, funding and so on?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I have to say damage is not actually not that big. I have to say, or can say, luckily, I mean, we had chemicals that were delivered after lockdown that were ordered already, but we put them in the fridge, and that's okay. We don't work with animals or bacteria or anything like that. So from that point, I have to say we have a delay. Obviously, we a 2 months delay in experiments, but I would say on the long run, if you consider 4 years of a PhD, and if we look back in 1 year, it's probably not too bad, I have to say. I mean, contrary to the private sector and industry and companies, I mean, we are in a very, very good situation, I have to say.
What about the positive sides of the lockdown? Have you learned anything new, like the piano, or something that you perhaps would never have done if the pandemic lockdown didn't occur?
No. I did this a long time ago, learned the piano, but I stopped it. No, I'm very bad in music. No, I thought about it. There's actually one data set we have and never really understood what it's all about. And I invested a lot in that particular data set. I think I wouldn't have done this during normal daily life. I also think that, and also my members and my boss think that we learned that traveling can be reduced. We do a lot of traveling to, as I said, to Lausanne, which is 2.5 hours one way, just for a short discussion, and then we come back. This is, I mean, completely not necessary, we learned. That's certainly a positive aspect. I also think that this working from home is being more established now. I know I had never problems to work at home. Was never an issue. But for example, my wife, in her company, it's the bosses said, we like to have you, that you are in the office, so to say. But now they learned or realized that people can also work from home, and I think that's certainly a positive aspect. I hope it will remain like that.
What do you miss about the days before the lockdown, the pandemic?
Yeah. But I miss definitely the, via internet is okay, but in the end, a small chat at the coffee machine with my students. This I miss. Just a quick this interview, this Skype and things. This always takes an awful lot of time because you always say, "How are you doing? Is everything okay?" But otherwise, you just have a coffee and have a short discussion. So that is something I definitely missed. But not everybody in my lab, I have to say. Some people almost never show up. They somehow like they like to stay at home and being alone. I don't know. It's quite personal.
Do you think that we are now heading towards a new normal and leaving what we knew prior to the pandemic behind forever?
I'm not so sure. What I see now, not in science, but in daily life, it's almost going back to normal, I have to say. And I don't. In the beginning, there was a lot of philosophical articles. Everybody had the feeling to write a philosophical article, how life will be never the same as before, but I'm not so sure if this will actually be the case. Our situation was way better than in many other countries. I realized that the discipline, so to say, here at least was and is still pretty high. So not shaking hands and having a distance, and this is quite an amazing discipline still around, especially here at Empa. Also, more than in a shop. I mean, in a shop is you have a hotspot at a vegetable place. Everybody is there, but at Empa, everybody's keeping a distance. So maybe it's maybe it's different in other countries.
This concludes this episode of the STAM podcast. Comments and suggestions can be sent to the STAM publication team using the email shown in the STAM Insights website. The website also includes links to the latest highlights and papers published in STAM. On behalf of the STAM publishing team, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your company again.